regards thereto from the insurance company was forwarded to the accused address, the P.O. Box address, Olifantsfontein. The court will see, I did note it, I think it's P.O. Box 933.
Yes.
And that is the accused P.O. Box, my lord. So it's not only Professor Johnson's evidence that stands alone. Because if the court have regard to even the evidence of Mr. Haystack, he even picked up.
Mr. Haystack's evidence is that there was a call which was received.
Yes.
And somebody wanted to find out whether it was Mr. Ndlovu.
Yes.
And the call was dropped.
Yes.
And subsequent to that, there was a call from landline. Am I correct?
Yes, my lord.
Who made that call?
According to Mr. Haystack, the voice sounded like the accused.
But at the time when the call was made, was Ms. Ndlovu, so Ms. Ndlovu alive or dead?
No, she was already dead. But it was from the initial phone call was from the handset, which was provided the number as Audrey Ms. Ndlovu's number. But at that time, she was already passed away.
So when that call was made, she was already dead?
Yes.
That doesn't mean that. You know that we are trying to unscramble the HP.
No, I agree with the court.
When Thomas Costa
Thomas Cosa, yes, my lord.
and Mrs. Webe and Masrane Masanga, they particularly Miss Webe, she said the accused approached her on the basis that she phoned the accused, but it goes to the voicemail.
Yes, she was unable to find all the sister.
And but this phone, but the accused was found in the deceased was found in this cottage.
Yes.
And everybody was resident, but there was no. The phone was never discovered.
Yes, the phone was never discovered. If the court have regard to Exhibit Y, the statement of the accused made after the incident, Exhibit Y, the accused submitted that the phones were missing in a statement. But the evidence of Mr. Corza was nothing was missing. You couldn't find anything missing. But what we do know is there was no phone that was discovered. But the same phone was utilized to call and inquire about the policies.
There's the one which was
Yes.
dropped when there was inquiry about it.
Yes, that is the number where Mr. Haystack, he summarized all the calls that was received from behalf of Ms. Audrey Ndlovu, and he then said,
But this was just a minute.
so if regard is given to that, my lord, then more credibility and more reliance can be made based on the findings by Professor Johnson. And in Professor Johnson's report, he says, yes, the voice is similar, but not only the voice. When the accused announces a certain word, she rolls the R. And that was picked up in numerous calls. And that can only be contributed to the voice of the accused individual. Now, my lord, yes, Mr. Johnson's report, he couldn't have been cross-examined due to his untimely death. But the facts which is contained in that report by the other facts, my lord, which the state presented, like Mr. Haystack, who testified, about that. But then we also look at the policies. Miss Audrey Nomia Ndlovu, she resided in a bedroom, one bedroom, at the back of the landlord's house. She wasn't having a rich life. But yet, there was numerous policies where she was the holder, the policy holder, with Audrey Nomia. If the court had regard to Annexure 3 to my heads of argument,
What is Annexure 3 to?
Annexure 3 is this table of policies.
That is, I didn't get
Can
that.
I hand one up to
Yes,
the
please.
court?
And it identifies that.
It identifies the exhibit, the policy,
Yes.
date of inception, and when the claim was made, the debt claim. So it's just a summary to assist the Honourable Court.
Whilst you are on that,
Yes, my lord.
can I take you back to your case?
Yes, my lord.
Page 5, item 21.
Yes.
You see? Can you read that into the record?
Dr. Mushwana,
Yes.
friend of witness, oh, that isn't, Dr. Mushwana, yes.
Not a friend. It's a
That's it.
person.
Oh, that isn't here. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to be sure. And
Okay.
Siyabong 48, he's with the Standard Bank.
Yes, that was the policies at Standard Bank.
That's the one who, yes. Is he the one who said, he did an interpretation of this clause in 3 months in order to
Yeah.
qualify or it should not happen?
No, it was in Malu. Mutepe was of AFCO. If the court remember, William Mutepe, Mr. William Mutepe testified on behalf of AFCO.
Yes. No, I just wanted to
Apologies for that, cousin.
No.
Might have misstart that.
No, don't want. I'll pick it up because, I think, quite,
So, if the court had regard to this Annexure 3, which set out the exhibits, we have the old mutual policy. If the court had regard to my table,
yes.
it's in the middle of the page. The court will see in the first column, count 2 is highlighted.
Count 2, yes.
Count 2,
One,
so it's line
two,
1, 2, 3,
three,
4, 5, 6, line 6. And it goes up until page 3, my lord. The second line.
Sorry, it's from count 2.
Count 2 is page 1, line 6,
Yes.
up until page 3, line 2. Line 3,
Oh,
No,
it's
line-
number, okay. And then that will
Line
be
six.
broken.
yes. So if the court have regard to this table, yes, there's policies on behalf of Ms. Audrey Nomia Ndlovu where she was the policy holder. And the court can have regard, but there was also policies where Audrey was not the policy holder, where the accused applied for that policy in herself. If the court have regard to the first one, Exhibit SS, the open mutual policy,
Yes.
that policy has lapsed. The court will see that. Then the second one, on the 16th of
So
April,
SS is lapsed, the second one is
16 April 2013, the accused applied for a comprehensive and extended funeral plan. Now, the witness from Old Mutual came to testify, and she explained to the Honourable Court what does comprehensive mean. It means double payout. Exactly as the accused informed Mr. Dlamini during the ride to Bushbuck Ridge, that is what she's relying on, the double payout as soon as possible after the death occurred.
Well, I don't think the time within which they settle this thing is a new phenomenon. Have you seen a certain advertisement we pay within 24 hours?
Oh.
That is clientele, and that is hollered, and that, if you
Yes.
look at, and this is a very massive, multi-billion industry.
I do agree.
Yes.
But then if we have regard, my lord, to line 7, that policy, once again, that policy was obtained on 16 April 2013.
Which one is that?
Line 7, page 1, my lord.
That is Old Mission.
Yes.
Yes.
It's also an Old Mutual policy, comprehensive and extended funeral plan.
Which one is, let me just see whether it's that. Where is that? Comprehensive, yes.
Yes.
And comprehensive, it means twice.
Yes, double payout in the event of an accidental or unnatural death. Now, but then, my lord, there comes another similar fact.
Where's you are on that? And I will also ask your colleague here. The person, for want of better name, the insured here, had a child,
Yes, Brilliant Mashego.
Brilliant Mashio.
And he's not named as a beneficiary.
On the basis of probabilities, how would you assist me to deal with it on the basis of probability?
My lord, highly improbable. We've heard the evidence of both his grandmothers. We've seen conditions how they resided. It was a rural area. The paternal grandmother, Ms. Sharash, who testified in court, Sharash Mashego, she explained to the Honourable Court, she struggled.
Just there. My understanding of her testimony is that there is a rift between the two families. Would I be correct to make that inference?
I will agree with
She
the Honourable
even
Court.
said she was unhappy because the Ndlovu family came there and stood away from there as if they are not the immediate family members to the deceased.
During the
Is that-
funeral
Yes,
proceedings.
did I hear that correctly?
That is correctly, as well as a portion of evidence where she said that she was the only individual contributing towards the upbringing of Mr. Brilliant Mashego. She received no assistance from the Ndlovu family or the accused at all. So that, my lord, should be taken into account, because even at that stage, when the mother of Mr. Brilliant Mashego passed away, one would surely expect, if a mother would wanted a life policy, why do you want a life policy? To enrich your sister? Or to ensure that there's something to look after your children? To ensure that there's a future for their children? Is that not why one would obtain a life policy? But for your sister, who's employed as a police officer, does that make sense?
Well, on that, a juxtaposition that with her evidence, in the bail application.
Yes.
In the bail application, if understood, and this pick it up from the heads of your colleague, and I will also seek here, because at the end of the day,
Yes, my lord.
one has to say on the scale of total evidence placed, has the state proven his case?
Yes.
In that application for bail, would I be correct to say that the accused indicated herself as a very caring person
Yes,
who paid for everything.
yes. And she also indicated that the family is very poor, that they are suffering, they're living in the rural area. But then also, my lord, if we look at the date, if I can take the court to Annexure 3, on the 16th of April 2013, the accused applied for the Old Mutual Policy 6900591087 45381,
Sorry, what?
line 7,
Yeah.
page 1, Annexure 3. That is the date
Sorry,
she
that
applied
is on the
for.
first page.
Yes, my lord.
And then
OM3. But now, the similar fact comes the very next line. The so-called plan, comprehensive family funeral plan, taken out by the deceased on the very same day, 16 April 2013. What is the chance, my lord?
just a minute.
I have emailed that annex, my lord. I don't know why the court,
Uh,
but I will email it again to the
no,
court.
I've got it. You've given me this one.
Okay. So,
Just a minute. Yes.
so if the court have regard to that, and also to the other factor that the state is saying is a similar fact throughout all these offences, my lord, 16 April 2013, the deceased was found killed 26 June 2013.
Sorry?
26 June. Nomia Ndlovu, count 2, found deceased 26 June 2013. So the period of ensuring the said individual, my lord, is extremely short before payout is effected. Just the very next line, my lord, the court will see that the policy in respect of the Holler policy exhibit WW, the court will see that the Holler policy was obtained 18 July 2012. So that policy's no premiums was received. If the court have regard to the fact 2012, it was too lengthy period to cover this individual. So it's the state's respectful submission, what we can see from the pattern and the actions of the accused.
Yes.
The lives weren't insured for such a lengthy period on the policies that she in fact claimed and which was paid to her, my lord. Now,
Just let me seek your assistance. Evidence before this court is that there was some threats from the accused directed at the investigating officer,
yes,
and also to Mr. Haystack that why you don't pay, I'll report you to the ombudsman. How do you link those up with your suggestions of?
well, my lord, the actions of the accused by threatening the investigating officer for instructing everybody to withhold payout, what is the only inference to be made from that? Why did the accused have to threaten the investigating officer? All he did was,
Well, what you would do? What would be your response? That well, she was entitled to do so because they undertook contractually. If one has to accept that there was a contract, that they would honor that in within 24 hours.
but as a police officer, my lord, surely you will realize payouts cannot just happen if there is an investigation pending, If the police notifies the insurance companies of a pending investigation, halt the payouts. Surely as a police officer, she has to understand and accept an unnatural death. Something has to be investigated.
Just a minute. There is only one instance where she said, as a police officer, I wouldn't have allowed this to happen. Do you still recall that?
I would not have allowed
When she said she could, not allow that to happen. I think.
Oh, the robbery of the traditional healer, when she apparently took Mr. Njabulo
yes.
to Bushbuck Ridge.
Yes. Is it
Yes.
where she said, as a police officer, that
Yes.
is the only one, would I be correct to say that is the only incident that he said, as a police officer,
I would
I
not.
could not have allowed that incident to happen when
Yes.
it is alleged that Jabulani
Wanted to rob
Kunene
the
wanted to rob the police if she, the traditional officer.
Yeah. But then the question arises, as a police officer, that very same day you are arrested, you do not deem it fit to submit a warning statement and say, listen, I'm innocent. I was here to assist this man to see a traditional healer, and he wanted to rob the traditional healer. So I distanced myself from his intentions. Is that not what one would have expected?
Whilst we are on that, when the witness testified, the younger sister, what is the name of the younger sister?
Kebesile Kunene, Ms.
No, the
Kebesile
younger sister to the accused.
Joyce Ndlovu.
When
Ms.
Joyce Ndlovu
Ndlovu.
testified, what was the request to her by the accused?
The
And how
request-
do you link that?
Yes. I believe the accused wanted to ensure that Ms. Joyce Ndlovu was in fact at home the next day, so that the death could have occurred. Because she only wanted to inquire about whether or not her friends or neighbors or would assist her and everything. And then she also asked her, will you please take me to a traditional
Yes,
healer?
that is what I'm interested in.
So,
she
for
said, she received the call in the morning.
Yes.
I think it's on the morning of the
The
7th.
Yes.
That accused number one, accused telephoned her to say, look, I've got such a, bad luck spell.
Yes.
I don't have any children, I
Husband.
don't have a marriage and all these things. And I want you to may you take me to the
Traditional healer.
traditional healers.
My Lord, the reason why I'm saying is that was only a purpose or an intention from the accused to ensure that the sister is in fact at home, because Ms. Joyce Ndlovu said that was a strange question. She never visited traditional healers. She didn't believe in them. So if the accused wanted a traditional healer, why did she not approach her mother or anybody else?
No, but
But-
has that was that evidence disputed?
No. Yes, it was actually. It was by Mr. Soko. It was disputed that it was just a blatant denial. She never phoned you.
But in evidence in Riverwalk evidence, did the accused
Yes, my Lord.
did she accused deny that?
Yeah, she denied the calls that was ever made to her sister. It was just a bare denial, according to her. She went there on that morning to assist Tsebisile and Mr. Njabulo Kunene to go and seek the assistance of a traditional healer. But now, even that version, my Lord.
Just a minute, we have, as I've said, these facts are interrelated.
Yes,
They jump from one case to
to
another.
another.
When Brilliant Mashiro decided to alight at the engine garage, what time did the accused say it was?
I believe 11 o'clock.
No.
Close to 12.
No. He said at 9:30
The
in
evening.
the evening. That, and under cross-examination, what time did he say?
12 o'clock.
11 to
Yes.
12. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes. No, it was in fact stated like that.
And this was at the engine garage
In Dwarsloop.
in Dwarsloop, and this was in the evening.
Yes.
And that's when she was waiting for this
Boyfriend.
Ngwenya.
Yes.
Yes.
But now, once again, my lord, even though there's no duty on an accused person to call a person to establish an alibi, certainly if it was your boyfriend or a romantic interest, and for the effect, even if he did not see Mr. Brilliant Mashego in your company, for the fact that you were with him traveling back to Gauteng, surely he could assist it in her evidence, as her evidence itself was not satisfactory, my lord. There was unanswered questions. Initially, she did not admit that she was with Brilliant Mashego. It was hidden only in the bail application. And when she was questioned about the bail application and the difference in her version from the bail application, Exhibit ZZZ, up until her version when she testified, my lord, then she blamed
The-
counsel.
yes.
So the fact that the accused version was developing all over the case. Initially, she pleaded guilty to conspiring. Initially, she pleaded guilty to conspiring with Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize. When questioned by the Honourable Court, it changed. No. It's conspiring with Mr. Njabulo Kunene. And she admits, we discussed killing my sister. But then all of a sudden, I realized it's wrong. And I decided not to go through with it.
Just stay. Let's go back to Lakiwe Mkhize. Who was it ever denied that they were together in Dwarsloop or in Tulamahashi?
Yes.
But what was Lucky Mkhize's response?
If I can just quickly assist the Honourable Court. He said, we did, my lord, and his evidence, yes, there might be criticism against his evidence. However, it's the state's respectful submission. Where his evidence was faulty or
Where do you think
that trip to Pomalong. But the accused herself doesn't deny the trip to Pomalong.
you know, when after Njabulo has
Yes.
introduced him to accused,
Yes.
and that is when they were at Miss Kunene's house.
Yes.
Okay. But what I'm interested in,
If I
And-
can quickly
yes,
assist
and
the
this
Honourable
is where
Court.
the witness even said, I come from KZN, how do you?
Yeah. I don't know that area. How would I have known?
Did the accused not deny that he was there
There.
with him?
Accused never approached you and asked you to kill her sister. During December, she was at Sebesile's place. So that was not in dispute, that they were at Sebesile's place and that they met there. But all the other meetings and phone calls between themselves, my lord, was disputed. If I can just have a look at...
Yes.
It was put to the witness. He testified that he was taken to Tule Mahashe.
Yes.
It was put to the witness that that the mother stays in Bushbuck Ridge, not Tule Mahashe. But Tule Mahashe is in Bushbuck Ridge.
But you know, was it denied that they went there or the mother?
Yes.
The two statements are not, the two questions are not the same. Was it denied that they went together?
Yes. It was.
The
Accused denied that she hiked with you to Tule Mahashe, and the witness said she's lying. They went.
Okay.
It was towards the end of her evidence, the witness's evidence, during cross-examination, my lord. But the accused version which was put to this witness was bare denial.
Okay.
But then that evidence of the accused cannot stand, Because exhibit WWW, the phone records,
The phone record.
that is on black and white.
Yes.
The witnesses were asked towards their numbers, what are your number? It was placed on record. It was never disputed that that was the number. Then it was, in terms of section 220, admissions that the phone records were handed in to the Honourable Court.
While we were on the admissions, in terms of section 220, as the case developed and progressed, there were certain factors that became common cause,
Yes, my lord.
i.e. the payments of all the monies into the accounts of the accused.
Yes.
Does that, how would you factor that in relation to the whole phenomenon or hypothesis of similar facts?
My lord, the fact remains, initially it wasn't admitted that she received any money. The state had to prove it. And the witnesses came from all the insurance companies. They came, they testified, the bank accounts, payments, all the exhibits are placed before the Honourable Court. There is no escape way. And all of a sudden, it's admitted that the money was received.
So would I be correct that, in addition to the admissions made in terms of section 220,
Yes.
as the case progressed, certain factors,
Yes.
certain factors became common cause,
Yes.
including the payments?
Yes, the payments that was received, the court will see at the onset, at the beginning of each and every count. In my heads of argument, I've set out a summary of what is issues in dispute
Yeah, no, I've seen that. I
and
just
what
want
is
to-
not issues in dispute, and throughout the trial did
Again,
not become.
in the interest of fairness,
Yes, my lord.
let me take you to the state at submission in the case where it is said Ndlovu was a hit man. I don't think there's any evidence to say he was a hit man.
My lord, it should actually have been in quoted text.
Exactly.
Because on behalf of the accused, she saw him as a hitman. But for him, it was only
No.
about meat and drinks.
No, but Ndlovu said when he was approached,
Yes.
he said, "I'm not a hitman,
Ah.
but I will assist." That's when Lakiwe Mkise comes in.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, my lord.
So
I
it
agree.
is not correct to say he was a hitman, alleged possibly.
Yes,
He
my lord.
denied that he was a hitman. He even questioned the accused, "Why do you pick on me?" And if I recall properly, he said, "Nesbindi, you know what?
No, my lord.
You've got courage."
Oh,
He
about
said,
the gun.
"How do you come to that?" He said, "I realized that when I arrested you in
Yes.
2011.
My lord, even though Mr. Lakiwe Mkise and Mr. Njabule Kunene says, we are not hitmen.
No.
The accused saw them as hitmen. And I agree with the Honourable Court, I should have probably said alleged. But these are my heads of argument, my lord.
No,
and
I just wanted to do that
Yes.
so that anybody must understand that
Yes,
it was
he's not a
alleged.
hitman.
It is alleged, and he, allegedly, organized.
Yes.
Mkise, Lakiwe Mkise, and Mkise went with them to Pumulong Fest,
Pumulong.
and Lakiwe Mkise also allegedly went with the accused to
Bushbuck
Lamahaj,
Ridge. Yes.
Bushbuck Ridge.
Yes. So,
Because, the reason why I'm saying this is because when the conspiracy or the plan developed, it was Njabulu who said,
I'm not a
no, he escalated that to Ndombela, the friend, and the friend
Yes.
then said to that.
Yes.
So I just wanted to in case anybody can have this discussion that Njabulu was a hit man.
No.
He was unlaced, he denied, and he is the one who reported,
The
and that
accused.
report triggered
Yes.
the sting operation. Am I correct?
I agree with the Honourable Court.
Thank you.
So, but the accused, for her perspective and for her purpose in this case, he was the hitman. She
And-
paid him money to execute certain individuals. And she even went on afterwards to follow up and inquire as to why the hit wasn't carried out, why the people weren't executed, why the people are not crying, why there's no tears.
That's when they have come back from
Pomelo.
Pomelo.
Yes. And Mr. Mr. Njabulo Kunene says, we enjoyed the money for meat and drinks. But it then continues. The accused continue, and then she meets them again, my lord, and have a discussion, and she tells Mr. Njabulo Kunene she's killed her sister.
No, she said, when Njavulu Kinene asked about the sister, said that one has been taken care of.
There's another portion, my lord, in the evidence that the state found. If I can just quickly assist the Honourable Court, it was put. He asked, if I can just, yeah. She told me she has killed her. In her evidence, just after he provided his numbers, in his evidence, my lord,
Where on which day?
that was on the date when the video clip was played in court, 28 July 2021.
Just a minute.
2021. It's just before the cross-examination commenced.
That is 28th
Yes,
of August,
July,
July,
28 July.
before the
Yes.
cross-examination.
Yes, the witness is asked for cell phone numbers, and once again he provides the cell phone number, as well as Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize, and it wasn't disputed. The numbers that belonged to them was never disputed. Now those numbers painted a dark picture, which corroborated their evidence. Not only Exhibit 1, the video footage which was recorded in the vehicle, but then also the contents of Exhibit WWW, the cell phone records of Warrant Officer Venter, who then made for the court a chart. And then that exact chart, my lord, also utilized the numbers of the accused, which places her in the presence of Brilliant Mashego.
But what do you make of her contention that when she called that number from Arvik, she thought it was like, was,
Sebesile.
yes. What do you say about it?
My lord, if the court have regard to the cross-examination even of Mr. Kunene and Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize, that was never put to her. Even to Mr. Kunene, it was put to Mr. Kunene that the accused never found Sebesile on that phone. So here we have a total different version of the accused being developed, that it was in actual fact Sebesile that she wanted to get hold of and not the alleged hitman. So even though the accused attempted to deviate from her version and make her version fit in as reasonable possibly, if she was able to do that, my lord, she wasn't. She was unable, and that is why the court will find throughout her evidence she amended her version. She became evasive, she became argumentative. And then we also find the similar facts, my lord, in the fact that the deceased individuals, Mr. Maurice Yangwani Mabasa, who was found there, he wasn't robbed. And the extent of his wounds, if the court have regard to his wounds, 80 plus stab wounds.
79.
79. 79 stab wounds, my lord. What does the court make of that? on a day-to-day basis, we see dockets, we see photos.
Well, you know, while you're on that, I did invite the accused
From the onset.
to particularly during the testimony of Charlotte Maluleke, to look at the photo of Brilliant Mashiro in those T-shirts.
Where it was
Yes.
found.
No, because she had to give the counsel instruction whether that was how he
Yes.
was dressed. What was the reaction?
She refused. She actually, if I remember correctly, she just threw the photos to the side, to the interpreter's side. And yet, in her evidence in cross-examination, so the version was never put to Mrs. Maluleke that the deceased did not wear that clothing the day when she visited Ms. Maluleke in the company of the youngster. But in her own evidence, she came and said, no, he was never wearing that type of clothing when we were together that day.
Okay, let's proceed to...
Okay. Now, if the court then, after then 2017, my lord, then the investigation started opening up. And we then found 2 policies in respect of Mr. Witness Madala Homu. No further evidence was found to indicate that another person might have been involved. There's no evidence to such an effect, my lord. But then we also have the frightening evidence of the mother of Mr. Witness Madala Homu, who testified during January 2012. The accused phoned her and inquired from her, what is her date of birth? And she then sent them 200 rand cash to buy a cake to celebrate her date of birth. And she found that extremely strange because the accused never provided for her or assisted with her. Then we see the accused receive a total amount of 131,339 rand and 70 cents. The evidence comes to testify. Ms. Eva Homu testifies and says, yes, the accused contributed 200 rand when the meat was insufficient. The accused version again changes. Initially, she said to Ms. Witness Madala Homu's mother, the accused offered to pay 15,000. 15,000. Then to Ms. Homu, when the court asked, offered, and it was said, yes, offered. And the court specifically asked, offered. And then Ms. Homu came to testify and the version was amended. She handed her 15,000 rand. And the reaction of both these 2 witnesses, my lord.
The handing came during her evidence in her own defense.
It was put to Ms. Homu as well, my lord.
And then, no, I mean that, but
Yeah.
He said, I drove to Zanin
Yes.
with Morris and we handed. Mrs. Her aunt,
Yeah.
her aunt said,
Lucy Mushwana.
yeah, she said they never gave me even the book in which you document the contribution. There was nothing from her. Did I understand
Yes,
that correctly?
Ms. Mushwana was very up to
And that's
whatever.
the time when the suggestion was made that she broke down.
Yes.
And he said, since the burial, this is the first time that I see her in court.
And from the burial, the accused never even attempted to make any contact.
Yes, no, he said
Now, if that is taken into account and Exhibit ZZZ, the bail application of the accused, where she creates this background of this caring individual looking after the family and extended family members and explaining why she took out so many policies covering all of them, her version was, I wanted to take care of them financially, because due to my upbringing, there was a financial burden on our family. Yet here we have a family. The mom elaborated how she struggled as a farm worker. She elaborated that she struggled financially. And then the accused received 131,000 rand, 339 rand. On its own, my lord, that doesn't seem too suspicious. But then we look at the column just next to it. Why do you register your cousin as your spouse? Because the accused, as was testified by Old Mutual, as well as Mr. Huystek, who testified, if you have a policy for a spouse,
Yes.
you do not pay a premium. So, from the onset, my lord, in 2012, it is respectfully submitted that the version of the accused that the salesperson from the different insurance companies just made the error cannot hold any water, because if the court have regard to Annexure 3, she lied in relation to witness Madala Homu. She lied about their relationship. She lied in respect of Brilliant Mashego being her son. That is not her son.
Well, what would you say if I invite you to take it from perspective of culture, to say, in certain cultures, there is indeed, she can qualify as a son, or she can qualify as a mother.
My lord, perhaps in culture, but if you complete like certificates of documents that you submit in claiming for insurance benefits, documents that you sign and undertake that all the information is true and correct. We all have cultural traditions. However, we are bound by the norms and rules of our society.
You know, of
Yes.
the protocols of the business
Yes.
involved. Okay, please proceed.
So, for that, my lord, in the respect on its own, with Ms. Madala's Homu's case seems, yeah, but then we complete the puzzle and we find similar facts in the romantic relationship of Mr. Yangwane Maurice Mabasa. Now that matter, my lord, is quite interesting, because then we received the evidence of Mr. Masana Mashaba, who came to testify. The accused wanted to obtain a life policy in the name of her spouse, Mr. Maurice Yangwane Mabasa. He then informed her, no, I cannot do that. And then he was informed, no, but my husband's here, come, and then we will assist, we can do the life policy here though. Much to his surprise, my lord, Exhibit 2, which contains the photo of the deceased Mr. Maurice Yangwane Mabasa, was not the individual who signed the life policy. On the day, Exhibit FF, when the accused were present and when the policy was entered into, and the court will find that particulars on page 4 of Annexure 3 to my heads of argument.
But just there, the facts are still very clear
Yes.
in my head. With your untrained eye,
Yes, my lord.
when you look at the signature attributed to the late Maurice Mabasa, this is Maurice Mabasa,
Yes.
and you compare that with the signature obtained from the employer with your naked eye.
Yes.
What is your comment?
That's blatant fraud. There wasn't even an attempt, just like Lieutenant Colonel Caroline Mulawa testified, my lord. She testified. There wasn't even an attempt to make it look similar There wasn't even an attempt. It was straightforward. Not that individual.
And that is the same individual who is said to be Maurice
Mabasa.
Yes.
And once again, my lord, Exhibit FF was obtained 20 April 2016. Mr. Mabasa was killed 14 October 2000.
Sorry,
No.
when was the insurance taken of Mr. Mabasa?
1 August 2015. There's
1 August,
2015.
yes.
My lord, that next column, there's an error. So that should be 1 August 2015. And then his body was found
The
14 October
police was taken on 1/8/2015,
2015.
and the
Body was discovered
14th
October 2015.
and this is after there was an inquiry about the status of the policy then.
Yes, my lord.
Okay, that's fine.
Now that one, we're not only relying on Mr. Mashaba as well as Colonel Mulawa's evidence, but then we also look at the evidence of Mr. Heistek, who testified. No, I'm incorrect. If I can just, Mr. Dix Makachwa, who testified that a month or 2 weeks prior to the death of the deceased, Mr. Yangwani Maurice Mabasa, the accused phoned and inquired whether or not the premiums are up to date. Now, the reason why the accused phoned, my lord, if the court have regard to the, it was deducted from his bank account and his salary, my lord. Why did the accused inquire? Because she did not have access to that bank account anymore. She did not have access to find out whether or not the policy was in fact up to date, whether or not she was in fact going to receive a payout. So, if the court have regard to this puzzle of evidence, which on its own might seem insignificant, but then we also look at the policies of Ms. Audrey Somisa Ndlovu, similar.
And that is where you say, from the totality of all the evidence,
What's the only inference that this court can make?
this inference that she was
Responsible. But then we
like,
also,
what do you call them? Tricoté. You know what is the tricoté?
yes, it's a game.
No. You know, this is a group of French women knitting
Yes,
when during the revolution, when the men who were seen to be treacherous were being executed.
Yes.
So she was, if I understand you, she was there.
yeah. She
Or
was
she
there.
was in the near vicinity. That's
In the
why
near
he
vicinity.
knew exactly where to go to.
But then
Would
if the court,
that be correct?
Yes.
That is your submission?
yes, because it wasn't only in respect of Mr. Yangwani Maurice Mabasa that she allegedly noticed he went missing. It was also in respect of Mr. Mayeni Mashaba. According to Mr. Godfrey Mushwana, he testified, the accused phoned me and said she cannot get hold of the deceased. At that stage,
Which, no,
no,
that's a homo,
witness. Oh, sorry, my lord.
Witness, yes.
But the accused was the first individual to realize there's something wrong. But she wasn't only the first individual to realize this individual is missing. She was the first there with Mr. Witness Madala Homu. She was the first individual who realized Maurice Yangwani Mabasa. She was the first to realize Audrey Somisa Ndlovu. There was no, she couldn't get hold of her. Everybody mysteriously disappeared. And the accused was the first individual who reported it missing.
But this is now, with the Madala Witness Madam, I'm not the first one. I received a call from Shwana, Godfrey. But Godfrey says, no, I received a call from her. And Eva Mushwana says, I didn't even know how she got hold of this because she's staying in Tembisa and Madala Home was staying in
Garsfontein.
yeah, Garfontein. Yes.
My Lord, but if the court have regards to all the factors here, the fact that the accused, and it's my submission, my Lord, that the accused reported the missing individual as soon as possible to be discovered in order for her to claim the money as soon as possible. Because if the court have regards to my last column of all the policies, my Lord, shortly after the death is discovered, within 2 to 4 days, the death claims are being submitted by the accused.
And how do you tally it up with the conversation with the Rasta?
Because in the conversation with Rasta, it was said, I will pay you from that money.
No, as regards...
It fits perfectly,
No,
my Lord.
as regards the accidental death, he says...
You
if-
get double.
No, if it's accidental death, then they will pay within shortly
Yes.
because they will not be dead. Did I hear that
Yes,
correctly?
and that is correctly, my Lord.
Are
But
you
it's-
able to come to your conclusion?
Yes.
Yes.
It's the state's respectful submission, my Lord, that due to all the similar facts that I've highlighted in my heads of argument,
Yes.
even just from reading Annexure 3, my Lord.
What is Annexure 1 and 2?
Annexure 1 and 2 is State versus Mugale, my Lord. Annexure and State versus Njezi.
You know, 1 and 2 State versus Mahala, I've got up to, I think, page, paragraph 50.
I will just resend it again.
But that would be, you don't have a copy with you there?
No, I don't have it. I have it on my computer.
Okay.
Yes.
In
that matter-
I just want to, because, all the cases, the Mahala deals with the
Similar facts.
yeah, the interpretation of the, how, the methodology of attribution of similar facts.
Yes.
And as well as in the case
Circumstantial.
of Murphy J.
Yes.
Yes, now, because there you only want to highlight the methodology,
Yes.
that we have moved from the Herschel, Lord Herschel, strict interpretation, and we have now entered this because the jury is no
Yes.
longer. Okay.
I agree. But, my Lord, what I would like the Honourable Court to take into account when considering the guilt of the accused, we've had here a list of witnesses, 54 witnesses, who testified on behalf of the state. 52 witnesses. And the accused version in respect of all those witnesses were bare denial. Bare denial, although her version seemed to sort of fit in there, but it was bare denial of their version. Even Sergeant Mugwari.
Well, I would like to debate with you the question of reliability in the sense of credibility.
Yes.
What do you say about the state witnesses?
The state witnesses were reliable, my Lord. They were credible. They corroborated one another. And
Was there any shortcoming in the state version?
no, my Lord. The only shortcoming that I will concede to is Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize in the fact that he says he did not go with them to Pomalong on 17 December 2016.
But
2017.
Remember
Remember
not the evidence of Njabulo
yes,
and
Sebesile,
Sebesile.
and the accused herself says, we went there.
So
So the fact that he does not recall going to Pomalong, my Lord, does not affect the state's case to find his evidence not credible. Because even if a witness may not recall or lie about a certain aspect in his evidence, it doesn't mean the entire evidence of that witness should be discredited.
it can only be rejected if it's material.
Yes. And it's respectfully submitted the fact that the accused admit we were to Pomalong. It's only for the court to decide, was it according to Mr. Vincent Njabulo's version or according to the accuser's version? Now, the fact that Gladys Nomasonto did not testify, Ndlovu, my Lord, it's the state's respectful submission that it's not detrimental to the state's case. Because even Ms. Joyce Ndlovu, she only established the fact afterwards. But the agreement, the conspiracy.
So you said that the agreement was between the alleged hitman and
the accused.
testified to.
Yes, and the accused. And for that, my Lord, on the part of the accused, the part that she played in that conspiracy, her role was completed except for the last payment after the deed was done. So for that,
Once you advance that hypothesis, what do you make of the version of the accused's mother? The accused's mother says, firstly is a lady of advanced age.
jeez,
And she says during December in 2017, nobody, doesn't say, nobody unknown. He said, nobody visited me. Did I understand that correctly?
yes, that was her version, my Lord.
And then I don't think, she was just deliberately, misplacing.
She remains the mother of the accused, my Lord, and I believe,
And I don't, but I don't think she was, her evidence is neutral.
no, I don't think so, my Lord.
You don't think it's neutral?
No, I don't think so.
Why do you say so?
My Lord, her evidence to that day of that period
Yes.
was clearly to protect the child. Her evidence wasn't needed. The state has enough, sufficient evidence placed before the Honourable Court to make a guilty finding in respect of the count 14 of Maria Mushwana Nyavana, the mother of the accused. However, my Lord, I believe she wanted to protect her daughter. I believe mothers want to believe in the goodness of their own children.
I hear you.
I cannot take it further. Except for that.
In conclusion?
In conclusion, my Lord, the state will then therefore request a guilty finding on all the counts as set out in the indictment.
Conclusion as you have it in paragraph 94 of your heads.
Yes. 94, 95, up until there, my Lord.
Yes.
The only inference that this Honourable Court can draw from the facts which was admitted, the facts which was not disputed, the facts which was placed by the Honourable Court, and the circumstances, my Lord, drawn from the common cause facts, is that the only inference is that the accused is the individual who perpetrated these offences, and that she should accordingly be found guilty, my Lord. Unless there's anything further the Honourable Court would like me to address.
Annexure 2, you say is what?
Annexure 2 is Mugale, state is Mugale.
Oh, yes, and then
Annexure 1 is state
is,
versus...
Nzunza.
My Lord, that's another matter.
That's the judgment of J.
Yes.
Okay, that's
yes.
fine. Good.
That is it. I will email it again.
Now I've got them.
Oh.
I just want to, certain pages are not there, but if one looks at the analysis of the approach,
Yes.
attribution approach
Yes.
that the court has to take, as explained in even in Zephyr
Yes.
and latest developments, I think. But for sake of completeness, just I think you will have it as well. Just check with me.
I will email it again,
Okay.
as please the Honourable Court.
Thank you. Mr. Soko, here, if you were not sitting in court, you will think that this is a story out of the book written by Sherlock Holmes or Agatha Christie, Madam Agatha Christie. And as I've said, if you want to pepper it with, then you can say also the Madame Defarge of Three Coteaux, French, who were knitting the wool when the revolutionaries were being executed during the French Revolution. I've read your haze. Let's start at the beginning. No, the rule is very clear. The state must prove its case beyond reasonable doubt. But that statement should not be misunderstood. Beyond reasonable doubt does not mean beyond the shadow of doubt. Miller versus Minister of Pension, 1947, the House of Lords in England so pronounced. And that survived when they used to say you've got to look at the law as it was on the 31st of May 1961. You know why May 1961? If you read your law of evidence, it says when they refer to other cases, they say you've got, particularly in the law of the law of evidence, they say you've got to look at the law as it was prior to the 31st of May 1961. That is when we were still using the the British legal principles before we became the Republic. May 1961, 31st, South Africa became a republic. So that's why they will always tell you, you've got to look at the law as it was in 1961. Please proceed. So we have said it must not be, it doesn't mean, the beyond the shadow of doubt. And the court has to look at the merits and demerits. The court has also to look at the probabilities from the proven facts. There's no obligation on the accused. The state is rested with this responsibility beyond reasonable doubt. But if they made a prima facie case, the Honorable Mr. Justice Gilham Musene against State versus Tebus, and I think also in the case of State versus Zuma. If there's a prima facie case and you decide not to respond, there are consequences. We have laid down the principles. Am I correct? Are you with me? Good. Take it up from there. Yes. Yes, proceed.
is to cover the family.
In the event of death. But then let me engage you there. You said she did this out of the kindness of her heart. But what was her response when she was asked why you didn't pay the 100,000 rands that you received in respect of Madala Homo?
Now, with regard to that, the evidence that can be that he did discuss this one 15,000.
No, but that is, you've got to make some submission. The state says I've got to dispute that. Mrs. Mshwana there, she was in the witness stand. She said he never gave me the money. Mrs. Mshwana there, she even broke down. She said the last time she saw the accused is at the funeral. And when it was put to her, it was not said she gave you. She said she offered. Offer, it means acceptance. And it is not so that, if you contribute, you don't offer, you pay. Did you say she paid? Is that consistent? Is that consistent with this generosity that seemed to be emanating from the accused version, particularly at the bail application?
At the bail application, there are two in that bail case. She testified that there was an error when we charged that affidavit.
No, but what I'm engaging you on, you're saying this, we're done in good faith. And I'm testing you that. But you must understand, good faith is not is not a defense. You've got to look at what the state is saying. So if you look at Madala's position individually, you may say, well, there is nothing, suspicious about this. But the consistency and the pattern is when they introduce the question of similar facts. And similar facts, as I've already indicated, until very recently, our law, which emanates, our law of evidence, which is basically based on the British legal system, and in the case of that Mencken versus Attorney General versus the Attorney General, Mencken versus Attorney General of New South Wales. The only the prohibition that one has to guard against is not what you've got to use it in order to prove that she is that kind of person. But if the consistency is so huge, then the probative value goes up. That's what the state is, has indicated. They say, look at what he did at Madala. Look what he did at Morris. Look what he did at Somisa. And look at how these deaths were discovered. He said, if you take that into account, the only conclusion that you can arrive at from the proven facts is that the accused is the person who was in conjunction with unknown people, participated in the killing of this. And they don't even stop there. The point that you don't, attack in your papers, they don't only stop there. They say, look at how they are being identified. She's the first one to be there. Immediately after the death, she lodges, and that argument goes further to Somisi. Says, look, this was a simple human being who didn't have enough. She was staying in one room. But the pattern is exactly the same. They even raised the question of, is it probable that Somisi, who had a child, the child is Brilliant Mashiru, the victim who is now the state submitted, I've got to find from the conspectus of the all evidence that the accused had a hand in her death. And you remember the Brilliant Mashiru was found on the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. And accused accused testified that she was there. She was the last person to see Brilliant Mashiru at Dwarsloop. And she left there. She doesn't even tell us how she left Dwarsloop to go and catch with Mr. What is it? The boyfriend, this, casual boyfriend.
Bennett Bomani.
Yeah. That is how they put it. Now that is what you've got to address me on.
With regard to all these incidents,
Yes.
I would also to all the information. Before I go to all the information, there's evidence from the two sides. At the time, he was qualified for H1 some time regarding the whereabouts of the seat that the son was owned by the landlord for the deceased. Has not paid his rent.
Just there. Just stop there. And let's use common sense. That was on the first. Is there any reason why the landlord would say on the second he phoned somebody to say why he hasn't paid rent? And Godfrey Mushwana, he has gone to great lengths to say, look, my cousin is a police officer. I left everything in her hands. And then the accused says, no, he is the one who went into the police station, for instance, as far as the death of Mr. Maurice Mabasa is concerned. But he denies. He says, I was there, but I didn't go there. And if you contrast that with the evidence of Detective Sergeant Ledwaba and Mukwari. Mukwari says at 6:10, the accused came there with a child who could have been about 5 to 6 months. And he wanted to report the missing person. And I asked her, do you have a picture? She said, no, but I don't stay far. She went out. And immediately she came. When she came back with he was following or in the vicinity of Ledwaba and her colleague. What he does then, he puts his hands on her head and starts crying that they killed my husband. That's where the state says the pattern is the same, propensity. Now I'm asking you, please address me on that.
With regards to the Muslim,
Yes.
the accused is not a dispute that he was staying in Muslim. And they were staying together a lot. When he left to work and never come back. And the accused phoned his employer to find out whether he reported the issue. He was told that he never reported. That's when the accused went to offer to report the missing person.
Well, Mr. Soko, I hear you that. But can I give a point that you need to address me on? one basic rule of evaluation of evidence is what? Don't cherry pick. Take the case in totality. That's why the state has indicated that when you look at it alone, it may seem to be innocent. But when you start to increase the way things were done, that's when they introduced the phenomenon of similar facts. But he behaves, this is a behavior all throughout this. Now I want you to address that. In other words, what I'm trying to do, look at the whole case as a unit.
Also, with regard to the accused version, we can take also together with the evidence of the accused and now suddenly President Obama arrived. And at that stage, the accused started crying, screaming,
That is in respect of whose death.
most not.
But he says, evidence is that, I received a call from Sergeant Mugweri. Sergeant Mugweri says, no, I don't know this person. But in her evidence, as he testified to, he said, not only that, Morris Mabasa was well known in the area. Possibly he might have been in the Stockfell with some of the police there. And that's why. He says, Morris, Sergeant Mugwari phoned her and said, I've got this news. He said, when she was confronted, he said, well, Morris was well known in that area. So how do you do that? How do you make me to cross that? But the danger that we have to avoid is to try to cherry pick. We have to test this, treat the evidence from the first from 2012, when Constable Ndlovu, as a young lady from Bushbuck Ridge, arrived, and in short, as it were, Madala Homa, until on the 7th of July, then as a sergeant in the police force, when she was arrested at the police station at the taxi rank in Bushbuck Ridge, en route back to Johannesburg. Unknown to her, there was a sting operation. So this 7 years, then she is about 43, 44. At the time, it was about 33. At the time, when she did some of these things, she was more matured. Now, just tell me, how do you cross that? The state says don't cherry pick. Treat it as a unit. And in fact, you know that evaluation is, you always tell me that you take all the conspectus of the case. State versus Maiden. Yes.
Disregarding the evidence of the case, we are taking all the evidence with regard to all the incidents.
Well, let me engage you here. Was the deceased married to Madala Home?
They were not married.
Madala Home is her direct cousin on the first line of consanguinity in terms of this. The mother to Madala Homo, who was in the witness box here, when she looks at the accused, is ke ngwana wa ausi ya gagwe. And if we have to use the phrase that I tried to argue with the state prosecutor here, that the word brilliant is a child, in certain situations it might be correct. I'm saying so because Mrs. Mushwana, Lucy Mushwana, could call the accused my child. Ke ngwana ausi ya gagwe, ke madi abo. Yes. So, she took the stand and said, she's lying. Who should I believe? And tell me why. That is how you've got. She has told me why I've got to disbelieve that. And now it's your opportunity to rebut that. But was that correct? Yes. And then what is the effect of that incorrect insertion vis-a-vis the insurance policy? So that is a loss to the insurance policy, to a company. Is that correct? And because he's registered as a spouse, what amount of money he has to get, and which he did get? Yes. And that is that not defrauding the company? But you see, yes, it's registered as a spouse. Then you said that the insurance should have investigated.
The document that was submitted to the insurance should be sufficient to prove that indeed the is a spouse to the beneficiary.
But was it not so? She submitted the claim saying Madala Homo is a husband, spouse. Was Madala Homo her husband? And as a result, that is not true statement. Is that correct? And he comes from a police woman. Yes.
However, the error was with the same person as the insurance. That's why I'm going back.
That is a version. But the version of the state, if you read ex facie the document, it says what? And it says it's a spouse. And if it's a spouse and you discover an error, how do you correct an error in order to get the things honestly and rightly done? Sorry? You make an amendment. Did he make amendment? Why? Because the submission of the state is that because this was intentionally designed to defraud the company, firstly, the premiums, secondly, the double payment. Yes.
When the claim is lost after the receipt of funds, there are certain documents that must be submitted to the claim.
Yes.
However, my lord, those documents were submitted when the claim was processed
And paid.
and paid.
Yes.
However, my lord, with regard to those documents, there's no evidence that maybe there was amendment to say that this is not a spouse or he submitted a marriage certificate.
Wasn't that document written in her own name? The claim form.
Yes, indeed, it was the same.
And in her own handwriting, he says, Madala Home is my husband, is my spouse. Isn't that so?
Indeed.
Then
So,
it-
the question now that we left with was a marriage certificate submitted.
no, let's forget about that. Let's forget about that. Is that statement true? In the light of all the evidence from Godfrey Mushwana, from Mrs. Mushwana, the aunt to the accused, from Eva Mahomo, from all the witnesses that testified against, for the state. Is that statement correct?
No, it's not correct. It's not correct. We agree with that. However, the error that was made as the basis of the evidence was made by self-testimony and it was amended. As I put that in the accused cannot be seen as a person who might be taken to perform the insurance company. So from the evidence of Mr. Haystack, Mr. Mabeni, and other insurance service personnel, their evidence is that now, if you are living with someone for more than 3 months,
No, it's not from Haystack.
not from, yeah, from Mr. Mabeni, for more than 3 months, and you share the same responsibility, that person is registered as a spouse.
No, it's considered.
It's considered as a spouse.
Well, can I engage you on that? What is your understanding of a spouse?
My lord, my understanding from the spouse is people who are married and married.
Now, who are married, and the marriage may be taking different forms. It may be, traditional marriage. It may be the so-called civil marriage. Would you say the accused was in a traditional marriage with a cousin? Sometimes it happens. Now I'm asking you, would you consider this to be accused to have been in a marriage relationship, be it customary, be it what they usually refer as to common law marriage or civil marriage? Would you say he was in such a relationship?
No man was not in a relationship.
So that statement which he writes down is not true.
That is continue.
And if it's not true, what are the consequences? It means other people contracted with her on wrong basis. Is that not so?
That, my lord, I will take it further, my lord.
I hear you. I hear you.
Policy,
You have heard the state, and I've read your his.
and with regard to Mama, saying one was Mama, my lord, the accused and
Well, but the marriage was full of big problems. You still remember, Justice Mabasa? He said the accused would even come to his place, coming to complain. You still remember the evidence of Percival Maluleke, who led the house to hell. He said it was damaged. Somebody tried to commit, arson. They even found the petrol beneath the bed, which was occupied by your client. And Mr. Justice Mabasa, he even said over the weekends, the deceased will run away. And you know what was the source? He said, when they complained when they approached him, when she approached him, she indicated that the deceased son from elsewhere, from other relationship, was the one who was making the deceased to undermine the accused. Do you still remember that evidence? So how does that help you?
Well, however, people look at that evidence in the way. The relationship sometimes has
Some potholes.
some photos in there. And the deceased sometimes will disappear and switch off his phone. I got
Yes.
evidence from Justice Mahara.
Yes.
So,
That's why, just Mr. Soko, that's where the state is inviting me, and I'm inviting to rebut that, say, please make a deduction that this is, the accused has a propensity.
however, with regard to the other relationship with the accused, where there are some photos and some problems. The accused, on the morning, what you call it, when she went to Olifant for dinner. Well, I submit that he actually reasons to go and report.
But just there, let me just engage you there. The state argument which you now have to deal with is that that was a cover-up. That was a cover-up in order to fit in her overall pattern that they have explained to say this is similar facts evidence, and from which you have to make a certain inferences. That's what they're saying. And not only that, they also say the accused had a pattern of firstly designing things in such a way she appeases everybody before she hits. Firstly, they say she phoned Mrs. Mushwana, her aunt. She sends the money. The money is picked up from the ShopRite money platform. They buy the cake. And during that time, he says to her aunt, I'm worried about the conduct and the behavior of your son Homo. And in her own evidence, she didn't even know where Homo was staying because it would have been 30 minutes drive from Clayville to Garfontein. He said, I warn you. It reminds me, the arch. He said, I warn you. Take out a love, join the society. This informal burial society. And that's the society that buried the accused, the deceased. Notwithstanding the fact that the accused received in total 131,000 rands. They say, no, he doesn't do that. Now it doesn't stop there. Look at what he did with Somisa. In the morning there, she meets Mrs. Nwebe. She's introduced. And she and Somisa, who was allegedly going to church, they go back to her residence. He said, no, go and buy bread. And her evidence, no, she didn't go and buy bread. She went to take the bread from Thomas Kosa. They then had tea inside that cottage where the deceased was. There were 2 cups. It was seen by Mrs. Ngwebe, it was seen by Masangani, it was seen by Warrant Officer Mabale, it was seen by her own friend, Sergeant Pindi Shilubal. And they say, she took them and they stopped her. She proceeded. Her evidence now. After I discovered the body of my sister, I was aiming, I was standing up, they fell down, I picked them up, I put them there. But she doesn't, deny that she was warned. So they say, if you take all this, now before I come to that, I'm giving you this total picture so that you can assist me to determine whether the state has failed. He then makes some good approaches to Mr. Mota or Sanele Mota's brother in Davidton. Evidence is placed before this court that when I talk to you, please move away. That was never disputed. But again, what she does, she gives herself as this loving person. And this comes clearly from the evidence in the bail application before she hits. The police officer, Machikiri, he said, I found this body. I took the phone and I found the last number that was called. The lady said, no, I know the place. And nothing damning comes out of that. The accused says, I was not there. So, you see, now all of them first they make, she gives herself as a caring person. All of them. Even with a brilliant Mashiro. Brilliant Mashiro is a person who comes from Bushbuck Ridge, taking the CV to the airport. And then when Charlotte Maluleke sees her, how did he say? What was her evidence? She was in bad shape. She wanted 300 rand. I gave her. And in her own evidence, the next morning, Mashiro goes and sleeps with the cousins in Tembisa. In the morning, they meet at Sangweni. That is on the 22nd. Then they take a taxi from Sangweni to Germiston. And this is, during the day. From when they arrived in Germiston, they found out that the taxis to Mpumalanga have finished. Then they go to Benoni. When they arrive at Benoni, they found the taxis have finished. Then they go to hiking spot. They get into the house. And by the way, she's expecting the boyfriend to be going to that area. The only reason why she couldn't get a lift with the boyfriend is because this was a company car, which the company never give us. So this is how the state is saying, this is a pattern now. It is for you to argue to the contrary, to rebut that their observation, their presentation does not amount to the proof of, as they alleged on paragraph 94 of their case. Sorry? Boris Mabasa was the family. Yes.
And there was a good relationship between the two and the deceased.
And which disease?
My name is Mashal. We get from Mr. Ndlovu.
Yes.
He testified that my name is Mashal.
Yes. Incidentally, everybody calls her an aunt. Have you realized? Zanele Motors is his aunt. When she's taken out of the hospital in Tembisa, who was the last person to be with her? It's the aunt. Who was the last person to take her to the to RV hospital? It's the aunt. At all times that when she was in the hospital, with the aunt, there was no any other body. But when you look at the evidence of Dr. Ngu, Dr. Molo, and the evidence of Mrs. Pasha and Mrs. Mameja, they said, if she was so critical as she alleges, they would not have. And the doctor there was Dr. Lomoto. He said he couldn't. Dr. Ngu said in those circumstances he couldn't. Dr. Mpatlela says when the accused brought the witness, the Zanele to the hospital, it was at about 6 minutes past 12 midnight. And 2 seconds thereafter, 2 seconds after applying the machines, they found they declared the accused dead. If you want to use a good language, you say, in fact, it was Black Maria when the car in which she was taken to the RV hospital. Now, the state is, I keep on bringing you, the question is, the propensity, the similar facts are such that the probative value is that they've got to be taken into account, and when they're analyzed, the accused is the person who was in conjunction with the other unknown people responsible for the death. They said, look, she's the first one to find out about Madala, and the death of Madala is consistent with the conditions of the policy. The death of Mr. Mabasa, 79 stab wounds, consistent with the policy of funeral policy. The death of Brilliant Mashiho, consistent. The death of Zanele's brother, consistent. They all died. The death of her own sister. They say, now, please, court, you don't have any alternative. That is submission. Now I'm inviting you to rebut. Sorry? No. The idea now is not only the claim. We are not only dealing with the claim, we deal with the death as well. No, but but what about death?
On the day in question when Mr. Marina Shaban left Bishop, the evidence was that he went to meet Mr. Achu.
It's slightly.
And from there, the following day, he was found. However, with regard to the evidence of Mr. last number, that's what Bafana kumunga down. I think it's like Bafana to fight. This man received a call from the police officer who informed her that my Mashawa is passed on. And her mother phoned their children. The reason why he phoned is because he wanted to know what happened to the because the previous day she left with the disease, and now she received information that she has passed on. And the accused indeed arrived at the show around about 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. on that day. To meet with Bafana's mother. Now, the evidence of concern with the is that after you call the name, they say, I know the place. And still, the name was SSC. And he said, we get accused of a right. So, all the evidence of this man, autonomous skill and Bafana money. Here's the question. Bafana mother received a call from police officer to inform her about Asa was there. The same security phoned the news agency, phoned the accused. And the accused is saying they were there. However, if you look at the place from Yalmato Road, David Road, and the accused, even Bafana, went further and said that the accused was driving a bench, he was carrying a child on that day. However, from looking at the video, the accused was just there alone.
No, it's that I don't think you correct. They said on the day that the deceased Willie died, they were in a venture. But he didn't say in the morning when she went there, they were in the venture.
They said they were sitting together next to Cap 199 or something like that on the day before the decision meeting was accused. But the next day, when this message was conveyed and passed on, the message was conveyed to Bafana's mother through a cell phone of the deceased from the police officer in Shabana. That's the evidence of Mr. Bafana. And that's when the accused was phoned to come to Israel. And he went there. And she went there. However, Constable Machikiri is evidence that after he phoned the number, the lady who answered it and said that I know the place. And she arrived there. When you look at that evidence, it's clear that the accused in his radio said that I never went to the scene where the deceased is in the shower was found. I went to David. And when I was speaking to him, set up all to the evidence of the name of the name
Zwane, Mabusa, the lady,
the lady
who said, he went to the accused. He said the accused phoned her. Yes.
before them to come to meet with her at the
And he said, he eventually gave instruction that she must never ever do anything about that because she said, I don't even know her. Yes. She said she was given the information that she went away with the aunt and they phoned her on the number that they gave. And he requested her to come back and she refused.
the next day when she was phoned by the accused to say to her she must come to Pretoria so that they can meet, so that they can go and look for
So you say it's improbable. I will hear the state on that. So you say if improbable for her to
call Miss Mabuza.
Miss Mabuza to, why is it improbable?
Now, if the accused went to the scene, as Constable Machidi identified that, she went to the scene and identified the disease. Why would she call and Miss Mabuza and say, let's come forward, let's look for the body?
So it's improbable if she knew where the body was, knew or visited the scene. What did you say? Miss Mabuza said she phoned me to say what?
She must come to security that we can go and look for the body.
Okay. Are you closer to your argument? I'm not rushing you. I'm just asking.
And then, if you set up all the with the incident of all three police,
Yes.
go to the street that certain one of them arrived. They testified that they saw the accused taking these two cars and putting them. And furthermore, the evidence of the accused is that when they dressed she with food to somebody, they were sitting outside. And he even said that it was winter in that time, but that's why he was sitting outside. Never went inside.
No. They said, look, Mrs. Nwebe, let's start first with Mrs. Nwebe. She saw the accused coming to her. And the accused said, please come with me to Audrey's place. She refused initially. She said, then the accused became hysterical and started crying. She relented, she went. On the way, she fell. At the gate, she started to making a noise, and this noise attracted the people in the vicinity. And that's when Mrs. Masangane came in. And they went in, and she remained. And before they went in, she had the phone, handset, and she dialed. They don't know who she dialed, but they said, Ulovile, it's gone, it's dead. Mrs. Nwebe said, no, I want her. And he said, I was surprised because that stage, we were still outside. And when they got inside, she remained there. That's when Sergeant Shilubane and Mabale found her. They also they found her crying. And they said when they got to the house, this cottage of Somisi, it was the security door, the butler door was locked. The door, the wooden door was not. They took a stone, a pole, and they pushed it, and they then reached the body of somebody under the legs, and that's when they even tried to break the door, and they even phoned Badimu. Badimu said, "Is it Badimu?" Badimu said, "No, don't. You better unroof the house." But eventually, when Shilubane and Mabale came, they managed to persuade, and they then sent the Thomas, the boyfriend, to go and borrow the grinder. And when they borrowed the grinder, they opened it. So that is the context in which they have. But they have said that at that stage, there were a lot of people. And then they got inside, she got there, and all of them, they said they saw the cops. And the accused version is that I was cleaning up. So please.
On that matter, that when the accused, when the butler was trying to open, and one of the Samawat that he is the one who presented another statement and this is Thomas Porter, because President is in Dubai, and because the accused was like and there's no thing, there's no way anything is going to say that the other people who are present, they also anytime
But but let's for purpose of argument, let me grant you that. But then the story of the two cups converge from Sergeant Shulubani, who is the home girl from Mpumalanga with the accused. He says, I saw the cups. And if Mrs. Mamani and Mrs. Masangani were not, why does the statement, the evidence so much support one another? They corroborate one another. And not only that they want her not to take that. Shilwani, Mabani, Mrs. Masangani, Mrs. Ngwepe. Remember, Mrs. Ngwepe is the one who was called to accompany her to the residence. So does it not follow logically that if she was the one who was called to accompany, it follows that she was inside? Sergeant Maluleke and warrant officer Manyane. They had to say they took the statement. At the time when they took the statement, the accused was calm. Yes. Tinsalo Maluleke said he was calm. And so is that's the reason why they even said, the reason why they said they took the statement, they said they took the statement not as a suspect, but as a next of kin. Yes. So tie it up to the rebuttal situation.
and if you take the evidence,
Kanye, I want to something to drink. The water go until the halas.
the President Maluleke, President Shulubani, from their evidence, the only people who entered that cottage, only the accused and the police officer and Mr. Paul, Thomas Paul.
No, but Mrs. Maluleke, Mrs. Maluleke, you must understand that Mrs. Ngwepe and Mrs. Masangani were the very active member of that thing, because they were called and they were introduced to the accused. Yes. And if they were not in, how would they have seen this evidence of 2 cups, which in fact, incidentally, they are also confirmed by the accused? Safe to say, you know, those are not the cups that were used. And then, you know, but that's evidence. The state alleges that the situation should have been cordoned off, and that should not have been tampered with. And the conduct of the accused is defeating the ends of justice. What do you say to that?
With regards to that matter, the accused version is that the cups that they used to do the cheese were outside. These cups that were inside is when she laid next to the bed when these cups were, then picked them up.
But that version is contradicted strongly by all the 4 of the witnesses that you've mentioned. Mrs. Mawale, Mrs. Masangani, Mrs. Warrant Officer, you know, Mr. Mawale, and Shiluban. They said no, that's not true. She took those 2 cups and put them in the bucket full of water, and she confirmed that, except that those were not the cups that they were used. So they said that she tampered with the scene and defeated the ends of justice.
With regard to that, there is evidence that when they left Mrs. Nwebe and Mr. Kalani, that they were going to play the chief.
No, not when they left him, Mrs. Masangana and Mrs. Nwebe. It's when, after she was, the day before, on the 25th, I think, when she was introduced, yes. And but to make it even worse, you know, this case has got a number of different angles. You will recall that on the first day of encounter with Mrs. Nwebe, after later Mrs. Nwebe said, I saw her going away and coming back. And when you say, you said even she will come and say, she brought the grocery. You still remember that version? And then she left the grocery with somebody in the main house. Yes. But you know, that was not you know, ever you know, corroborated, not even in her evidence. Did he? Unless I missed it. Because, and she never even called the people who were staying in the main house to come and corroborate that. That's why the state is saying, if I understood it correctly, that she was busy building the alibi and defenses as we go on, break by break. Is that how I understood you Mrs.?
Yes, my lord.
This is, you know, what you've got to. But anyway, I hear you. So, in a nutshell, what do you say to all the, you know, allegations against her?
Before the survey, during 2017, when first met with the man at Felicie's house, Ejaholo, the man said he was present. He said he was called by her sister to receive the man over an unknown number. She answered, when he answered it was her sister, and she requested him to answer. However, no, that evidence was, after they met with the two, if you look at the evidence of Ndlovu, he was
No, 2011.
2011, he was discharged. From 2011.
No, he was not. They said he was arrested for illegal possession of firearm, and the charges were withdrawn. Unfortunately, we don't know much. That's when it is said Mr. Kunene manifested to the accused this krachtatigheid. Obamata. It's been siyabulala, it's been siyaphilisa. That's when he said that's how she was picked up.
If you look at the evidence of the arrest in 2011, to withdrawal of the charges, from there, there's no contact between the men and the accused until December 2017,
Yes.
when they first met at the house. That is the second, that was the second time when they met.
Yes.
And from the evidence of Mr. Ndlovu, there's nothing that they discussed with the accused during his arrest. It's only that he was charged and the charges were withdrawn.
Yes. No, that matter was not pursued. But what is the relevance of that, Mr. Soko?
Is that man of, on the first day after that man of 4 years, no, there was no contact between them.
Yes.
2017, during December, the accused is first, second time meeting with Ndlovu to just say, I want you to kill my sister.
So the point you're making is
I'm saying that man was
it's improbable.
improbable.
But killing of let me while we are on this improbabilities and probabilities. You recall that on the 7th of March 2018, when they picked accused from Kastenhof Hospital, her evidence is that they were, the car was parked some distance away, and she met with Njabolo. And Njabolo coached her as to what he has to say. And what he said is, was said that during the trip from Kirstenhof until they arrived at in Bushbuck Ridge. And you see that the distance from the main entrance of the hospital until where this was parked is not that long. Is it probable that he could have narrated them in such details that he could have narrated them the way she did? Is that probable?
Well, the distance, the distance means it's a short distance.
Is that, yes.
Hospital to where his car was parked.
Is that probable? To sort of catch her what to say exactly as she does on the clip about the trip. Is that probable? Once you think on that, well, and I hope you'll revert back to me. It's common cause that she was arrested in Bushbuck Ridge. But that is after they have visited and the house was pointed out where, the sister was staying. This is her explanation why she didn't go there, is that she didn't plan. Even if she didn't plan, surely if this opportunity arrived, is it possible that she couldn't have taken the opportunity just to go and say to the sister, hi, how are you? Unfortunately, I didn't come here. Is that probable? Because had he not been arrested by warrant officer Zulu out of the Kumbi, she would not have gone. She would have not gone to see the sister. Is that so? Yeah. Is that possible? Unless there is, that is why they stated this. This is a pattern trying to build alibi Because you must remember, the agreement was that she must be back into Kastenhof before a certain period. Yeah, then the state says, yeah, no, before that time, then she was busy building up the alibi. As they say, this is the pattern of how this case, the court has to look at the similar facts. Anything else, Mr.? Are you able to assist me in that regard? No, I mean, you know, whatever evidence you can to rebut what they say I've got to infer from. Hmm.
Before they reached the place where he was, when she told them that she wanted to go there.
No, but what I'm asking you, Mr. Soko, it's common cause that she came, you know, she originates from Mapulaneng or Bushbuck Ridge. Sin Limpopo is not in Mpumalanga. And this is an opportunity to have gone at least, even if she wanted to say hi to the sister. The state says, you know, the state says no, she didn't want to do that because she was building an alibi because the sister was supposed to be eliminated the evening. They said that's the only inference that I've got to draw. Now I'm inviting you to demonstrate anything to the contrary, to rebut that, to say that inference to be drawn is wrong. Well, unknown to him, the sting operation at that time was in, you know, what I don't like is that I'm not a participant here, I'm just only adjudicating, and I've seen, I don't want my face to appear as regularly as this on the media. It's I'm becoming part of Mvango. You know, one picture, one can, but you know, when I become to be flash all over, I don't want to be seen, I'm restricting the media, but you know, I'm not I'm only adjudicating. But what I'm saying is, I'm debating this with you because the state said, on the basis of this evidence, we don't show the pattern. And that pattern is similar facts pattern. And this is not the one which has to be rejected as an exceptional in terms of the certain case law. Now I'm inviting you to assist me to cross that bridge. They arrived in Bushbuck Ridge about 11 o'clock. When one takes into account they left Kastenhof at about 6 o'clock. Yes. I hear you. I hear you.
so that you can arrive, because you are now going to need to change the public transport. You know, the transport that
No, but she seemed to be used to the taxis. You remember when she went there with Brilliant Mashio? They went first to Jamestown, from Jamestown via go Binoni. So let's not, give that statement some steroids to make it bigger than what it is. So, in a nutshell, if you were to summarize, what would you say? The state has failed. Are you able to tell me in what respect? Sorry? Yes. Yes. Mr. Soko, you said they haven't sufficient. To advance their circumstantial evidence approach. Yes. Hmm.
During that time, she was saying two friendships. Only, and was saying and that that time, there was no person that arrived
Is that, yes, that's where I'm asking. Is that possible? Nobody. Said in December 2017, I was at home and nobody came there for water. He didn't say stranger. He said nobody. Is that possible?
Nobody can ask for water. And that is the evidence that she was really two grandchildren only. And they were young, grandchildren. And it's the evidence that they wasn't living. And they also living with one and a young child.
Just there. Was there any policy that covered Mrs. Mushon? That's so that's exactly the reason why the state is submitting that. Well, because of those policies, Mrs. Mushona was earmarked to be killed, so that they can catch, so that she can catch on that. And they then again link it up with all other modus operandi. You see, they say, look, how she operates, smart operator. She hits and there's nobody to say. But they say there, everywhere you are, there's a footprint. It comes this way. The footprint, she went there, she was last one to be seen with the Brilliant Mashiro. And she was always in contact with Brilliant Mashiro through the telephone communication. She was in communication with Lakum Kise through the cell phones. She was always there. That is how they say, that's why I'm saying, you know, they say she was a smart operator. Now you say, I've got to disbelieve that. And I'm inviting you, please give me the reasons. From, you know, that, you know, the reason that you've got to do must come from the facts as given in this.
On the day when she went to this public meeting, the children and the child and the men in the academy, he was accompanying the men to
But, you know, no, you're taking it, you know, in the middle. She said sometime before that, Kebisile and then Njabulo, they wanted to see a traditional healer, and she offered to go there. But on the 7th, there comes some people who he doesn't even know. She gets into the car. By that time, she was already a sergeant. And she doesn't raise that thing up. Says, no, I did not make agreement with you. And by that time, as they move out of the, you know, the Kastenhof towards the parking lot on where the public parking space, she said, Njabulo said to him, hey, this is what you've got to do. And that which he said, Njabulo said to him to do, in terms of those clips, at most is about an hour. When you tested them, you know, cumulatively the period they've taken is about an hour. So he said, this is what I was told to say. Now I've given you the background, and then you've got to take it up from there. You know, just to feel you. Doesn't come from, or to say. She said, you know, she was requested by Kebisile and Jabule. By the way, that version was never ever put to them. But Kebisile was not put to him. And Kebisile, you know why I'm saying this? You know how Kebisile and the accused met? They were playing, you know, they were playing the machine, slot machine at the Emperor's Place. And Kebisile happened to pull the handle there, and the machine, you know, started to emit some 2,500. The accused then asked her, what is what is your name? And then that's where the relationship was started. And she even asked her for petrol money. And that was never denied. But, you know, I'm putting this to assist, you know, to say, to give you the factual background. Now I'm asking you, please, assist me.
before the 7th of March 2018, the demanded the accused and this person that they will be taken to That's why on the 7th, when Mr. Gumeni the accused was under the impression that person was present and they were going to put public.
And you know, well, anyway, are you likely to finish anytime soon? Okay. And I'm not pushing you.
Well, I'm only now giving you this conspiracy the man, the Mutali, and the Mutali. So there's evidence also now they met with the accused. That convened that's where Mr. Nomia asked the accused about her sister who was going to school. In his response, Mr. Nomia said that he was killed. The accused said he was killed. And my lord, from the evidence that we read from this point, that the sister was in the home of Davis, Masonry, and my lord. Also, that Masonry was still alive. If indeed Masonry was killed, I submit that now the truth would not have told me the name that you are taking care of for her future. I submit now that the evidence of this man and this children, there are contradictions in that evidence. And my lord, those contradictions are submitted. They are material. And I submit that the accused version of the accepted my lord, possibly the true my lord, and that evidence between the men and the keys to be rejected. I submit that my lord. To find that he is not guilty of all the charges. That's my submission.
Thank you.
My lord, in respect of the question that the court said that I should address the honourable court in respect of Ms. Mabusa's evidence that it was improbable because that the accused contacted Ms. Mabusa to identify the body of the deceased in count 12, Willie Mota. My lord, however, what the accused and the defence forgot is Sergeant Machikiri did not ask the accused to identify the body for purposes of identifying a body and submitting the documentation at the mortuary. It was just an onset of realizing who is this individual that we found here on the street, lying there dead. It was a starting point of the investigation. What the accused needed, she needed the body to be identified at the mortuary and the relevant documentation to be completed properly at the mortuary in order for her to submit it. So it's not improbable that the accused went to the scene to identify, as well as that she went to Miss Mabusa and asked her, or that she phoned her and asked her to go with me to go and find the body. The purpose for that, my lord, was to obtain the death certificate, because as soon as the death certificate can be obtained, then the money can be paid. And that is the purpose why she requested Miss Mabusa to go with her to look for the body. And the court correctly found and questioned my learned friend, why was Sergeant Machikiri's evidence so controversial for the accused to reject? We know the accused had a conversation with the deceased the previous night. It was not in dispute. So why was his evidence so controversial for her to come and say, no, it wasn't me. I've never seen that police officer ever in my life. The reason, my lord, is she knew exactly where that body was to be found. She knew exactly where that body was discovered, and for that reason she was within 30 minutes on the scene. And only a person involved in that offence would have been there so quickly and exactly at the same spot. That is why she is fighting the evidence of Sergeant Machikiri. My Lord, I humbly respectfully submit that my learned friend is only stating that the court should reject the evidence of all the state witnesses. I humbly respectfully submit the evidence of the state witnesses was quite strong. The witnesses came here, some of them were police officers, some of them were neighbors, and it's a far-fetched theory from the defense side to think that the state would go to such lengths to incriminate the accused if the facts wasn't already placed there. Not all the witnesses will come under oath in a court and point the accused person. And it's respectfully submitted, my Lord, that mere request, come alone, to Mr. Mota. On its own, yes, it might once again seem insignificant. But seen in the light of the evidence of Brilliant Mashegu's grandmother, who said, Brilliant wasn't allowed to, I wasn't allowed to know that Brilliant Mashegu and the accused was communicating. Again, a similar fact. It also goes further, my Lord, and I can go on and on, but the similar fact is repeated in each and every count. And for that reason, my Lord, and common sense dictates that the court cannot just turn a blind eye to that mountain of evidence. On its own, it might be a lightest feather, but a ton of feathers is still a ton of feathers, and it may provide sufficient weight for this honourable court to convict the accused as charged. Does the court need anything further for me?
No, thank you.
As please, honourable court.
Well, I realize it's 12:20. May the counsel come and see me in chambers.
As please,
The
honourable
court
court.
adjourns.
That's what the case going back to that question, yeah, it doesn't make sense because
Why is it not postponed once?
yeah.
Hi. Do you have a copy? You can take one. Go. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think thing it. Hello. Explanatory.
Yeah.
Your heads and your argument was good.
Thank you.
You did a great job. You know, I was looking at case law and all that. You were able to,
Thank you.
yeah. It wasn't easy, no? But you did a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, yes. All right.
May the accused please rise? I've listened to the submissions or closing arguments by both parties. The state has submitted that I must find you guilty on all charges. Your counsel has indicated that the state case is so weak that I've got to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm now going to consider this. Therefore, the order for today is as follows. Judgment is reserved, and judgment will be handed out next week, Friday, that is the 22nd?
22nd, my Lord, of October 2021.
22nd of October 2021. And you are remanded in custody. And that is that your role?
No, my lord, my learned friend, Mr. Bodenhorst, they are here with that
I
matter.
think we'll take a short adjournment
Yes.
and we'll do that. Do you know where's Warrington?
What, my lord?
Warrington.
Yes, other side of Bloemhof and
Bloemhof,
Christiana.
and
Yes,
Christiana. Okay.
yes,
Khomukabeki.
yes, my lord.
Okay, then we'll take a short adjournment and my team will reconvene at 1 o'clock to proceed with other matters.
As please, Your Honorable Court.
The court adjourns.
Yeah. Shit, my laptop back. Oh, shit, my laptop stable. Johan, Johan, jullie gaan aan je niet.
Confirm the detention act and we have to take for Article 22. Let's propose Article 22.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
What do you think? I think we've got too little cameras involved. Have you ever in your history seen so many cameras?
Oh, okay. Okay, move. Session at Manset because those are but those of the man is a problem. I'm taking one. Let's move. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's right.
But I want to